Welcome to ksabi. I don't know what I'm doing, what type of intro I have going on, but here I am. Welcome. If you're new to the channel and you're interested in watching more videos like the one you just clicked below, or even more about what a mess my personal life is, subscribe and become a friend. All right, today, what we're talking about today is how to stay organized as a single stay-at-home mom. How can you be single and a stay-at-home mom at the same time? Well, there are people out there that's making enough money for it. Am I one of them? No, but I'm still a stay-at-home mom who is primarily supporting myself. Now that I have welcomed you, I always give a disclaimer, or more than likely I will give a disclaimer to my video. So the disclaimer for this video is what works for me may not work for you in terms of staying organized, and our situations may be different as well. A little bit about my situation is I have a support system. I have my sister, I have church members who have offered like when I was pregnant, like, you know, just reach out to me, let me know if you need anything. But I'm one of those people that I would probably psych myself out before I reach out for help. I really don't ask for help or to watch my child unless I'm going somewhere where he is not allowed to come. And even then, the people in my life work. So sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes I have to plan around it. Sometimes it messes things up or changes things around. But there are places that I can take him. I'm allowed to take him to my chiropractor appointments. I've taken him to the dermatologist with me. I take him to training with me. So I just say that to say that could play a part. And when it comes to how I stay organized, this is, which I may have put in the title, but this is pertaining to stay-at-home mom or people who are the primary caretakers of their child. And it may work even for somebody who works during the day, honestly. Because if they work during the day, but then they're still the primary caretaker when they get home, it really depends. That's not for me to sort out and figure out what works for you. But I'm going to tell you what works for me and how I keep myself in line. Also, here's another disclaimer. So currently I am a stay-at-home mom. My ability to do things may not look the same for a working parent. All right, let's finally get into it. So I believe who you were before also plays a part in your organization. Having said that, I think it's important for me to address what type of person I was before I had my child when it came to organization. And this is not necessarily to say people can't change, but I still think who you were before plays a part. For me, I've always been a punctual person, and that's if I know what time we're doing something. It's rare that I'm running behind. I've always been somebody who had many interests, and at some point I had to be realistic with myself on time frames that I had to put on my goals or even my daily schedule. So in the past, I've had challenges with being realistic with myself, yet still dependable in my opinion. I'm not going to get into all my interests, but prior to having my son, there was so many things I was trying to do. I'm still trying to do those same things. The things I was interested in before are the same things I'm trying to do now. So even in my spare time before, I was working on those other interests, learning sign language, business plans, things that I wasn't doing on the daily, but I knew deep down inside, like, I still want to do that. I felt like I had to work hard to play hard. Now with my son, I'm pretty much still the same way. And I just want to shout out graduate school. When I was in grad school, I had to learn a whole new level of time management. I'll leave that there. I had to learn a whole new level of time management. I could no longer volunteer once a week or once every 2 weeks or twice a week like I was doing in undergrad or like I was trying to do other times in my life. And I think grad school and having to adjust what my time management looked like helped me when it came to having my son and living my daily life. Now that I've said all of that, this is all, I think everything is easier said than done. Everything. Anything you say is easier to say it than it is to do it. But that probably also depends on the person. If you have a, I'm not going to get into that either. But more than likely, everything is easier said than done. Alright. So, I feel like everything I just said before that was a disclaimer. Even me saying how I think it's important to understand who you are before you have, who you were before you had a baby. Not even understand, but just keep that in mind. This is everything I can think of when it came to preparing for this video. One, I'm going to say prioritize your health and whatever you need at that time. You cannot take care of baby if you're not taken care of. That may be something you've heard before, but keep telling yourself that. I'm not saying ignore your child and ignore their needs like food and shelter and just neglecting them. But your needs are important. You have to be taken care of to take care of them, period, point blank. So this may look like sleeping while baby is still asleep. Or letting child take a little longer nap because you're not feeling up to it at the moment. That's what that could look like. Well, why am I talking about you? Me. It's about me because it's what, you know, may work for you. This is not about how you can stay organized. This is about how I stay organized and productive. So I prioritize my health. I'm sorry. I wrote it as if I'm like giving y'all tips. SMART goals. And remember, this is not in a particular order. But SMART goals. I know some of y'all probably heard this in high school and middle school. All of that. But that's real. SMART goals are real. SMART goals helps me to focus on being realistic. That's the biggest piece for me. Like I mentioned in what type of person I was before. Sometimes I struggled with being realistic. So this plays a big part in how I'm able to organize now. And that looks like sometimes I have to change things around in my schedule. At the end of the day, I review what I had to do for the day, reviewed anything that I missed, and I might have to move something from today to tomorrow. And there are things that I'm planning on doing that I'm like, realistically, that's not going to get done this week. That's going to have to be moved to next week. And I would rather have extra time and then I can do a task that's supposed to be done the next day than have too much going on in the day and then I gotta keep moving into the next day, keep moving into next week, keep moving it. No. Google Calendar. Google Calendar. I like Google Calendar because my phone is always with me. My phone is always with me. So I'm able to access whatever I need. I get reminders. All of that. So you can even see right here. Yup. That Google Calendar right there. So I use my Google Calendar, and I get a message letting me know what I need to do. So I wasn't even always a big fan of Google Calendar. That started in grad school too, because I prefer to write things down. I'm not into all that tech stuff. I'm not a tech savvy person, in my opinion. My auntie was telling me to use Google Calendar, and even I was like, oh no, I can't do it. Y'all, when grad school started, girl, please, I needed to use Google Calendar, because writing things down, I had so much to do. I didn't even have enough paper to write it down. And a lot of that stuff was consistent. Like my internship, my field internship I had, that was multiple times a week, same time. So instead of writing it down every month, having to go, like, instead of writing all of that down, I could put it in my Google Calendar and just do it like that. So to adjust from, I really had to adjust from writing to putting stuff in the Google Calendar. So that was interesting. And it was a slow adjustment, but it happened. Now I can't go back. I do miss the cute little planners though. I really do. Okay. Next. Break things down in tasks. Even organizing my list is a task. I have to break everything down, and it makes things easier for me. And also, I like just checking off a box sometimes. So I'm glad when I can check off doula homework. Check that off on Google Calendar. I'm happy about that. And something else, like I said, even organizing is a task. Now, I don't write that on my Google Calendar. And also, sometimes I can't put too much on my Google Calendar, because if I put too much, then it becomes overwhelming. So that's why certain things that's muscle memory, or I do every night, I'm not going to write down. Washing the pumping materials, pumping parts and all of that, I'm not putting that on my Google Calendar. Unless I'm trying to make a habit, maybe. Then maybe I would. But I do that every day. So for example, certain things of breaking things down in tasks, it also depends on what I have to do. If I know I want to make breast milk soap, then I need a day. Well, one of the tasks need to be find soap making items. Find the materials. Because when I start a task, especially with having a child, I can't always finish that task in that same moment. And that's a part of me also being realistic. I know I can't finish everything all in one sitting with the child. So that's part of me having to break it down. For another channel, I have to go make the list of items that I need to make a particular drink. So I need to make the list. Then it might be one day where I need to go shopping for the stuff on that list if I don't have everything. Then another task is I need to go downstairs and get those items. To me, that could be doing too much, but it's what works for me. Next. Texting myself is like self-reminders for me. Because I'm always going to check. When I go to messages, I want to see myself at the top. That's me. If I see the blue, wait, does it show up in blue? Usually it'll show up as a message. So I know, okay, let me go check my messages and look at what I sent myself. The problem is, I used to text myself before I had a child. But now I send myself texts, but I don't look at those texts to the end of the day. Not necessarily throughout the day, but at the end of the day, when I'm making my schedule, I go through my text messages. Because sometimes I put things in there that I need to schedule that I haven't put on my calendar yet. So I text myself to keep me afloat, I guess. Next, I keep up with my child's schedule even when it gets tough. Work harder now for an easier later. I say that because I started my child on a schedule at 1 week. And I probably mentioned the book that I was reading already. I know some people, yeah, I'm not going to get into that, but I started my child on a schedule at 1 week. Was it a little difficult at times? I mean, everything was difficult, to be honest. I was waking up at every 2 hours. It was going to be hard either way. I had to choose my heart. Was my heart going to be trying to stick to this schedule and stick to the concepts that I'm learning? Or is my heart going to be, or really, is my heart going to happen later? I mean, honestly, it was hard regardless. Like, I'm up. I'm adjusting to a new life. I'm adjusting to a baby. I'm learning who was in my stomach, who was growing in my stomach for 9 months. So, honestly, it was going, in my opinion, it was going to be hard either way. But sticking to the schedule is more so like sometimes you get judgment from other people about having a schedule. So, well, let me say, sometimes I may get or feel judged from other people for having a schedule. Whether, I mean, it not necessarily even strangers, but my mom. You know, what do you have this for? Babies, you're going to do this or that. All in all, I stuck it through with this schedule. And it was easier because I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to depend on other people to watch my child and listen to me when I was telling them, this is the schedule. This is what I want you to do. My sister, oh, she was here for it. I mean, she's the person who referred the book to me. She was here for it. She's like, okay, this is what time you're supposed to go to sleep. This is what time I need to put him down. This is what time I need to do this. And it's a way to do it when you're like in transitioning. To be honest, I can't remember if the book mentioned that, but you don't just necessarily hop right into, here's a strict schedule and I'm not feeding you even though you're hungry. No, if my child is hungry, I'm going to feed him. Don't get it twisted. So, keeping up with my child's schedule, no matter how difficult it could have been or gotten, I stuck it through. Another one, I'm selective with what I do and at what time. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Examples. I do tasks that can be done on my phone and with very little movement during common wake times for my child. For example, a couple weeks old, I would hold him during nap time. So that's something that I don't think the book mentioned, but I took concepts from the book and I kind of did what I wanted to. But I chose to hold him during nap time sometimes. During the day. And what I would do is I would do things on my phone. I would sit here, or even if I was pumping, I would sit here and pump because I didn't have the wireless pump the first month. Long story short, whenever I was going to be still, I always did certain activities, and that would be like doing business on my phone. I would do the sign language courses. I signed up for a free course. So I would do the sign language courses mostly in the middle of the night, to be honest. Sometimes during the day, but even 3 o'clock in the morning when I was holding him, feeding him, that's when I would do that. I'm like, okay, let me get on my phone. I'm doing a sign language course. I'm watching these videos. Also, I made phone calls during times I know that he's usually asleep or that he usually occupies himself. In the beginning, that was one of the challenges I think of the newborn stage, is he couldn't really occupy himself or entertain himself. So it was a little difficult. But when it did get to more of a point where he could, I might make phone calls in the morning when he's like playing with a toy or something like that. This is a big one, and maybe I should have said this first when it came to being selective with what you do and at what time. The best time to do tasks where silence is needed, like making certain phone calls, or for me editing YouTube videos, I need silence for that. I edit my YouTube videos usually after he goes to bed because I need to listen carefully. And let me be real with y'all. I've even had interviews during his nap time. And that's what I mean when I say, like, I've had virtual interviews during his nap time. Now recently, that's another story, because he's shifting right now. But he was consistent for, like, he's consistent most of the time. Like, his nap time is this time. And for 3, I would say, I'm not even about to get into the nitty gritty. Either way, I would schedule interviews during his nap time. It got to that point. And I thank the schedule for that. But and I trusted, and obviously I trusted his schedule enough to say, I can do this interview at this time. At 12:30 p.m. I can do this interview. I'm 95% sure he's gonna be asleep. I don't even have to ask my sister for help. I don't have to ask her to take him on her lunch break. I don't have to leave the house, pack him up, go drive over there, come back, or do an interview over where she is. I just scheduled an interview during his nap time. Now that might be risky, depending on what your child is like. I don't know. But I feel like that's a part in how I stay organized. Because guess what? It's only so much I could do. And like I said, I'm the primary caretaker. There was no, oh, I'll just wait to do this when my partner gets home, when his dad gets home. No, it was like, even when I was visiting my child's father, I tried to do as much as I could before he got home. So when he got home, I could rest. But even when he got home, I was doing YouTube and stuff. This is the last thing I'm going to say. I know y'all so tired of me. I get so talkative sometimes. So, last thing. I also would consider how to save time with certain tasks. When I say that, maybe that's not the best way to describe it. But when I say that, what I mean is, like, using that wearable pump. So me editing YouTube videos, I don't have a working laptop right now. So I use my mom's desktop, and that's placed a certain spot. So I have to multitask when I can. And that's when I decide to try to use the wearable pump and sit at the desk. I usually like to pump over here and do like phone activities, but sometimes I don't have that much stuff to do on my phone. So it's a certain time that I pump too. I pump 3 times a day now. It's very time consuming, but I still want to pump, so I don't pump as much as I used to, but I pump 3 times a day. And one of those times is at night. And that's when I get most of my stuff done because my child's sleeping. But sometimes I have to multitask. I can't just sit here and be a cow. I have to do other things. And even when I'm sitting here being a cow, I'm being a multitasking cow. I'm still going to work on things that I can do on my phone. And that's not even scrolling on social media. That's really me. I'm working on the thumbnail. I'm doing something. So it primarily sounds like what I'm trying to say is really like I find ways I can multitask. And okay, a part of what I feel like helps me save time, and technically this might not necessarily be saving time, it's just a matter of doing things at a certain time, but I still try to do as much as I can during the day. The more I do earlier in the day is the less I have to do later, and that depends on what's going on. Certain things I'm just gonna have to do in the evening regardless. Another thing, I get everything I need to get out of the way in me and my child's room. If I know my child is sleeping and he's a light sleeper at night versus during the day, at nighttime I'm gonna make sure I don't have to go back in that room. So I'm gonna look at my schedule before I put him to bed, so I know, is there something I need out of this room? Is there? Let me go and get that in advance. And also I have a system where if I can't walk in the room, I've got there's a piece hanging on my door, and I will put things up at the top that I need to see when I walk in. So I'm like, okay, this is gonna have to be taken care of tomorrow. I'm gonna put this up top so I can just take care of that tomorrow, because I'm not walking back in that room. Sometimes, like, I'll peek through the door, but walking in the room is a whole nother story. And having to touch stuff while he sleep is a whole nother story. Because he may wake up. So I will try to avoid having to tamper in the room that he's sleeping in. That was my last thing, and that concludes this video. Those were some of the things that I could think of within the 1 week I knew I wanted to make this video. However, there may be other things that I missed that I do that I don't realize I'm doing when I think about it. But I shared things that, some things I did intentionally, some things I realized that I had been doing that helped me stay organized and helped me stay productive when it came to having a child and doing all of that. I'm interested in knowing what any of you do, if you just came here to see what I do because you want help in terms of staying organized, or you're concerned that after you have a baby you may not be able to get the same amount of things done. And there's no shame in your game as a stay-at-home mom. There are people, even conversations I've had, where the assumption is because I'm stay-at-home that I have all the time in the world. More than I've got more time than somebody who's working. And I'm not talking about a working mom. I'm talking about a working father or something like that. But that can get into a whole nother conversation about comparing being a stay-at-home mom versus a working mom. But please don't have shame in your game because people are lacking understanding of what it's like to be a stay-at-home mom, and assuming that you twiddle your thumbs and you sit there and scroll on social media all day. But that also probably depends on what type of person people are. Some people may assume that because that's what they did. There are some people that may sit here and think, oh, stay-at-home moms only do this because when they were a stay-at-home mom, or when they were a stay-at-home dad for 2 hours, or I'm saying stay-at-home dad, watch their kid for 2 hours, or was a stay-at-home parent for a little bit, they may have scrolled on social media and ignored or not entertained their child. So they may think you're doing the same thing. So I feel like it's no shame in your game. I recently, I have a coach for something that I'm doing right now. And there was a slight facial expression made when I said I had to check my schedule. Yeah, I got a schedule. And also, just because you're a stay-at-home parent or unemployed doesn't mean that you don't have a life where you don't do things. But that's me having a little mini rant, or whatever you want to call it, after talking about how I stay organized. But you be great. I'm getting sleepy. I gotta work for the both of us. Put you in the driver's seat.